Hello, welcome to today's episode 3, and I'm excited to invite my friend, colleague, and content conversion strategist, Deb Coman, to come and share some of her wisdom and insights for growing your business through social trust and email marketing. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Deb.
Thanks for having me, Susie. You know how much I love having conversation with you, and I'm really thrilled to be able to have your audience tuning in
Would
with
you mind
us.
telling us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure, I'd love to. I'm a content conversion strategist and a copywriter, and I support service-based business owners, a lot of healers and spiritual workers as well, to get really clear on their content topics and then deliver that message, that unique message that is theirs and theirs alone through their email marketing strategy and social media engagement strategy so that they can get a steady flow of their ideal clients.
Awesome. Really cool. Okay. And certainly you practice what you preach. It's like I only want a fit personal trainer training me. So if you're going to advise me on social media, I want to know that you have like a huge following, which you do. So I was just curious, like, you've got a large following across your social networks, but you have close to 17,000 followers on X already. How did you get there? What do you do day to day? Like, how did you grow your network to this number? It's a lot. What are some of your daily practices and tactics you use to build your own audience?
Yeah, and I love this in that it's wonderful to have a big community on the social media platforms, and it's also about the quality of those connections, as we know. I know that's how you work too, Susie. For me, my daily practices, and to be honest, it's not always every single day. I'm a firm believer that we have lives outside of social media and that when we build relationships based on trust, they don't just disappear if we take breaks or are not always there. So I really focus my social media efforts on engagement with other people's content more than posting my own. No, it's not to
That's
say
a
I don't
mic
post
drop
my own.
moment. Sorry, I
Yeah,
just want to
no.
I would like you to repeat that again because that's a mic drop moment because that really flips the head of most people's social media strategy.
Yeah, thank you. And it does. It's not, I'm certainly not the only one doing it, but those of us who do know this is this is the key to making social media work, that I spend most of my time and effort on social media engaging with other people's content first, more than I do posting my own.
I love it.
And, that's also, I always did that to some extent, but when I really just went all in on it, which was kind of almost happenstance, like I just kind of didn't have a lot of social media content ready to go and scheduled. And I was like, okay, uh-oh. And I said, wait a minute, instead of creating, let me just engage with what's on there. I do that anyway. Let me just lead with that even more. And that's when I was recognized by a few things as a top digital marketer, and that sort of made a couple of lists. But it was because it was based on data, not following, not influence and that sort of thing, but real raw data around how much I was engaging versus posting, how much I was having conversation without links and promoting, and the same with the other people who made that list. And it was really a lot of validation for me. Like there's something to this, like you said, not everyone is doing it, and it's exactly when you're not doing it is why a lot of people say, "Oh, social media doesn't work." Like I don't get sales, I don't get clients. It's just a black hole and I'm just constantly cranking out content. And that's why I say, like, put the brakes on that. Switch to being an engager in what other people are talking about that's meaningful to you too. And that does flip the whole thing on its head and makes you look different than most people, and also generates, relationships where people then are interested when you go and post your thing or you're making an offer. They have something to go on about why they want to support you back.
Have conversations, develop that relationship. Developing the relationship leads to the trust, and that leads to the openness of doing business with you, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's how you and I met. And
Yeah.
from, mutual connections too, which is what it's also about. Like, bring other people into the conversation who are relevant, who not just tagging haphazardly all the people you wish would like see what you're doing, but people who you really genuinely feel will have an interest and something to contribute. It's about contributing to the conversation and expanding. And you and I have done that from the beginning with a lot of our, peers who show up similarly. And we then get to take it offline, learn more about each other, support each other. Like you said, we have a lot of overlap, and yet there are very, separate things that make us different and
Mhm.
allow us to still support each other without feeling like it's one or the other. It can be both.
Oh, absolutely. And I know you're a huge advocate of growing trust on social media. You even have the hashtag social trust as yours. What does that mean to you, and what does that look like in practice?
In practice, it is about that consistency more than the frequency of how you show up online is just to be there with some consistency, not only in how often you're there, but what your message is. Like, stay clear to what you really want to be known for and where you can contribute, versus sometimes people tend to kind of just go all over the place with content topics and talk a little about this, a little bit about that, and then you don't get known for something like social trust or email marketing or social media. Like, you really have to pare it down and then look for those conversations, which is what I do when I open up the platforms that you can contribute to. And over time, it doesn't happen immediately. Sometimes it happens fairly quickly, but it's a thing that needs to be nurtured. You need to kind of go back to those people and topics and conversations and take it further, expand it. Don't just echo things. Don't just say great job or I agree. Like, really act as if you would in real life. Like, tell me more about that, or I'm really curious. Why do you feel that way about it? And just, build those into your social media practices, and you will generate more relationships, and then ultimately people want to refer you, they want to buy from you if you're the right person to help them, and that stuff will happen with a lot more ease versus pushing and broadcasting promotions.
I love that. And we're gonna, change gears a little bit, because I know like social media is like certainly one of your natural zones of genius, if you will. But what are, and your other one is email marketing, as that conversion copywriter that you are. So what are some fundamentals for driving, to turn it over a little bit, like what are some core fundamentals for driving client acquisition using email marketing?
Yeah, so I love email marketing, as I know you do too, that is where a lot of our potential buyers are. And it's a tremendous asset when we use it the right way. And by the right way, similarly to social media, but even more, I don't know, closed off because they've agreed they want to hear from you. So they're one step further than a lot of the social media connections. We
Hmm.
need to generate the same trust with them. And the first off is to be consistent in our communication, which a lot of people don't always do, or
Hmm.
they mix it up with frequency. Like, the more I email, the more people will want to buy from me. Not necessarily true. We need to know our audience. We need to know the way they like to consume content, the frequency with which works for them.
Hmm.
And then we need to build and nurture those relationships so that when we have offers and make them through our email marketing strategy, not just a single email or two, they will be brought to the decision to buy or not to buy. No's are fine. We just want to help people get to that decision more quickly.
Can you give to your audience? They've opted in to hear from you. They want that trusted relationship. Nobody wants to hear from you more than once a week in your inbox. I mean, maybe if you're doing a campaign, I know that can fluctuate when you're doing a launch and things like that, right? I mean, perhaps that's just my own personal thing, because my inbox can be a bit of a dumpster fire. But I mean, having that right momentum, I guess for you, for me, it's a little bit less, because then I personally maintain a higher open rate when I don't send as often. That said, you can certainly drive more advantages if you are staying with that continuity and providing that value. So to your point, when you make an offer or you have CTAs at the end of your emails, people are going to take a bite at it because you've earned their trust. So it goes back to earning that
Exactly.
trust, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's like just exactly as you're saying, you need to kind of put that effort in of giving and we always say adding value. What does that mean? It means giving them how-tos, education, inspiration, other resources that help them solve the challenge. And then yes, when you make an offer, they trust you. They feel like they've already learned or gained by being connected, so they're going to be more curious about what in particular you're offering them.
Yeah. So would you recommend a combination of both social media and email marketing to drive revenue growth? Like what are some approaches for success
Yes.
that you recommend?
Exactly. So I feel that one, we need to always be building that email list and making an effort. A lot of people feel they make an effort initially and then they kind of set it, forget it type thing. We need to kind of be driving traffic to our email community all the time,
Hmm.
nurturing it, and social media. Social media is how we bring these new people in. And we all need to recognize that most all of us have a segment of potential clients who are never going to opt in. They may buy directly from and do buy directly from social, but they're just not email people, or they just don't want to get bogged down in that. They just want to
Hmm.
talk to you, hire you, and get moving. So they both carry fairly equal weight. And the third leg of that is, like I call it, a content trifecta: email, social, and the right content topics, the right
Mm,
conversations.
I love that. And do you think that list size matters to drive sales? Like you mentioned, like making sure that you're always growing your list.
Yeah, it certainly helps. And more important than the size is the quality. So that's why when we create some kind of lead generation practice or offer, that it be aligned with where we want to lead people ultimately, that it be delivered in the way that our ideal audience wants to be, wants to consume content. And that when we shift, which often happens, we pivot, we do go a little deeper on something, we need to bring that lead generation into alignment and maybe make some changes there as well. So it's all really critical to kind of getting people on the list, nurturing them through consistent communication, bringing value, and then making some kind of regular offers and not bombarding. But also, there are a lot of people who email all the time, they never make offers to their list. Of course they're not buying. Like we can't
You're not
leave it
selling
up to
anything.
them. Exactly. We can't make them do the legwork. We have to make it easy for them to
Mhm.
make that decision.
So I know you use a lot of joint collaborations. Like you always seem to be in some sort of a virtual summit. Like you're always being featured in these various places. Do you find that that's a great way to grow traffic for a small business and, grow your email list, or is your own lead magnet driving most of that growth, or both? Like, how are you
Yeah,
growing your list? Hmm.
I would say it's both. And all of these visibility opportunities, like being with you today in an interview, being in summits, even giveaways to some extent, they're all ways that we get to be introduced to different audiences that we might not find on our own. So I like to always have some of that in the mix. I seek it out, or I look at ones that I think I'd love to be a part of that the next time it rolls around. Do a little research. Can you just apply? Do you need to have a relationship with that person? That's always going to help. But also, the more you tap into that collaboration experience, the more opportunities will be presented, because people like you and I already do think of each other when we hear the topics that we know we're known for, and say, hey, make referrals. Say, I have someone who speaks on that topic. Would you like me to make a connection? And the opportunities then find you. People see you. They watch the interviews. They listen into the podcasts, and then they will say, hey, come on my podcast, or write a guest article, or let's talk more about how I might be able to work with you. So it all just kind of multiplies the more we do that. So one, I think you need to be open to that. Two, you need to be kind of in the mindset shift of looking for where those opportunities are, and then making it known. I mean, sometimes it's a matter of letting our connections know, hey, I'm looking for more podcasts to be on. Keep me in mind, or let me know if there's anyone I might, should reach out to.
Oh, that's really smart, like to do that with, because we all have exposure to each other's networks. And if you get a referral, that gives you that instant trust. So it goes back to the trust. And I feel like joint ventures for
Yeah.
you are kind of a bit of a bridge between your email marketing and your social too, because you certainly are very effective at doing those. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of that and leverage it as much as you do. So,
Oh,
um,
thank you. Some people are really more natural at the sharing part, if that's how they approach their social media in general. So when I get the opportunity to be with someone like you here today, I'll share about it in my social media ahead of time, during, certainly after, and also support that person with their other interviews, not just my episode. And when you do that, people do notice because a lot of guests don't do that like almost at all, which is kind of hard to believe, but it happens. So when we become sharers who really kind of honor that opportunity to be visible, then people appreciate that. And that's the kind of guests they really do want back, as long as you have something of value for their audience. I mean, that's a
of course.
given.
But you
But as long,
amplify the events too. You don't just show up to be the guest. You help
yeah,
cross promote, and you have your own big audience and what have you as well. It's like most authors these days too need to have a big audience before a publisher will even look at you. So your generosity you have when you network and you're out there building these connections and engaging and doing these joint ventures, it just really makes you that pillar of trust and like a good key connector person,
yeah,
to make more introductions for people, and just you're generous sharing other people's content as well. So you're amplifying it. So I mean, why
yeah.
wouldn't
Well,
somebody want to
thank you.
partner with you, Deb Coman? So
Thank
thanks again
you.
for coming here today. And
Thank
then I guess
you.
um one of my last or two quick questions. One, how do you build and establish trust with people when you first engage with them on social media? Like what's your tactic with that? Like
Oh,
if we were to
so
really drill down.
I'm genuinely interested in learning more around people, about people. So if they're sharing something, honestly, oftentimes it's the personal stuff. Their pet died, they're going through a rough time, or they're really had a launch that didn't go they wanted the way they wanted. I generally want to respond to that, like, gee, I'm sorry, or this or something. And
To
I
bring the human
actually,
element. Mhm.
yeah, make note of that. Sometimes I'll write a note to myself. Susie Hubert, this is what happened, or this is the name of that she shared. Also, a big caveat is only share things online that people already publicly shared online. Never bring into conversation something they told you offline or privately, because
Yeah,
everyone has their own barometers for how much they share. But if
right.
but make it a point to be genuinely interested, and then remember that the next time you see them as much as you can. It's easier for some of us more than others, but make that connection. How was that trip? How was your talk that you were getting ready for? And people just appreciate that because it's so different than a lot of the other ways that people show up online or in the DMs. So it's very refreshing. And then frequently they will show an interest in you and your content. And that's literally how you begin building trust and relationships.
I
It's
like that.
really can be
Bringing
simple.
that empathy and compassion into there. And I think you attract a lot of the healers because I think you are one, Deb.
Oh, thank you. You're not the first person to say that. I appreciate that. I love to partner with my clients to really support them to achieve their goals and also, yes, to get at the underlying things that are kind of getting in the way. It's not just
That can be a
tactics.
success blocker, right?
Yeah,
The stuff going on in your life,
absolutely.
your emotional state definitely impacts your ability to achieve. Definitely, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
How can people find you, Deb, if we want to connect on one of your channels? Because we know you're a gracious networker and amplifier of other people's contents and stories, and always giving away knowledge and freebies.
Yeah.
Where should people find you, Deb?
Thank you so much. They can always go to my website, debcoman.com. I'm on most of the social media platforms as Deb Coman or Deb Coman Writing. Love to connect. Tell me that you saw, Susie and I's having a conversation here, and let's, connect too, and let me hear more about you and what you're doing in the world. And if you'd like support, there are freebies and resources on my website to help you kind of really dig into what you might be needing to do differently with your own social media and your own email marketing.
Thanks so much for coming here today, Deb.
Thank you. I've loved it.
Thanks.